This is Ryan and lesson 23 of learning JavaScript. In this lesson we're going to deal with pop-up layers. So we need a CSS file for this. So link to a CSS external file in your head section and do this above your script tag. And then in your HTML we're going to create a div for our pop-up layer. Just give it an ID to uniquely identify it. And then just add some content into your pop-up layer. I'm just putting some text and maybe an image. Let's have a look. I think I need to use an image out of my pics directory. Then I'm going to paste some additional content just to take up some space on the page. And now I want to make this pop-up actually look like a pop-up. So that's where the CSS comes in. So we gave it an ID of my pop-up. So in the CSS we can actually style it. I'm going to just set the width and the background color. Maybe give it a border. Feel free to make it look however you wish. Let's add some padding. Okay, so there's my pop-up. In order to make it as a separate layer to the rest of the content, we would need to change the position to fixed. By default it will have a static position. By setting the position to fixed, we're going to make it a separate layer, removing it from the default flow of the document. I can then even control the position of that by using top and left. So how many pixels from the top of the browser do you wish to move the pop-up down, and how many pixels from the left of the browser do you wish to move the pop-up? So there we've moved it. You can just change the numbers to change the positioning. So finally I just wish to switch the visibility to hidden so that you can't see it. And then we need a way in which we can open up that layer by using JavaScript. So we're going to create a hyperlink or a button so that the user can click on that hyperlink and then the layer will pop up. So in the HTML I'm going to add a hyperlink that goes nowhere, just refreshes the current page, and I'm going to give it an ID of link, and I'll just say pop-up. So there's my link. It's got an ID of link. So then in the JavaScript I will make a variable for that, document.getElement by ID, that will search for an ID of link in this case. So the link variable will contain the entire link. The next step is to attach an event to that. So I'm going to attach an onClick event to the link and call an anonymous function. I'm going to return false from this function so that we can prevent the default behavior of the href from kicking in. Ordinarily when you click on a link it would go to wherever the href specifies it to go. So in this case we use the hash, which would simply refresh the current page. I don't want the current page to refresh because I'll never see the pop-up, so I need to prevent that href from taking place, and I do so by using a return false. And then I need to make this pop-up layer visible again, because in the CSS we set it to hidden. So in HTML the way you would do that is you would set a style property and you would set the visibility to visible. But obviously we don't want to do that with HTML, we want to do it with JavaScript. So in the JavaScript, we'll say we need to first of all get this div before we can manipulate it. And we've given it an ID, so we can search for that ID using document.getElement by ID. We called it my popup, so here we're searching it by its name, my popup. So that popup variable will now represent the entire div tag. So now I can say popup.style.visibility equal to visible. That's how you manipulate a style property using CSS. Using JavaScript. Right, so when I first load the page, nothing happens. Click the link and it pops up the pop-up layer. So all we have left to do is to create a close button, which will do the reverse. So in the HTML, I'm going to add a close button. Give it an ID of close but. And then I'll just move it to the right hand side, so we'll use some CSS to do that. Float it to the right. And then I'm just going to remove the margins off the headings, because by default headings have built-in margins, which are not always very nice. Okay, so now if I click the close button, I want the window to close. So step 1 will be to go to the JavaScript, and I'm going to just do it inside here. I'm going to create a variable for the close button and fetch it using document.getElement by ID. I'm going to attach an event to it, just like we did before. So when someone clicks on the close button, it's going to call an anonymous function. We need to return false because we don't want that link to do anything that it shouldn't. Instead, we want to manipulate the visibility again of the pop-up layer and make it hidden. Let's just test that everything works. Right, so when I click the pop-up link, opens the layer, press the close link, it makes it invisible again. So let's just revise. We have the HTML file that links to an external CSS document, and a script tag which links to an external JavaScript file. We've got a hyperlink which we're going to use to open up the pop-up layer, and we've given it an ID so we can uniquely identify it. We've also got a div tag which is going to be used for our pop-up layer. It's also got a unique ID so we can identify it. Within the pop-up we've also got a close button which also has a unique identifier. And then we also just have some additional content on the page. The CSS we're using to define the look of the pop-up layer. We've given it a width and a background color. And we've also set the positioning to fixed so that it becomes a separate layer, not part of the normal document flow. And we can then position that pop-up layer at whatever position we want. We also set the starting visibility to hidden. And then in the JavaScript, we attach an on-click event to this pop-up link. So we first retrieve the link using getElement by ID. And when someone clicks on the link, it calls an anonymous function. it's important to return false from that function to ensure that the default href does not do anything. And then using JavaScript we set the visibility to make it visible. And then we also do the same thing for the close button, so that when you click on the close button it also returns false and it sets the visibility to hidden again. And that is our lesson in pop-up layers with JavaScript.